Everyone talks about German superweapons. The 88mm, the Tiger tank, the Panther, reinforced concrete bunkers 3 meters thick. But in 1944, British infantry carried a crude spring-loaded tube that could punch through any of them. No rocket motor, no backblast, just a massive coil spring and a 3-pound bomb. The projector, infantry, anti-tank. Troops called it the PIAT. Cumbersome, brutal to cock, kicked like an angry mule. And it turned bunkers into coffins and panzers into burning wrecks at ranges so close you could see the terror in their eyes. How did a weapon this simple make German armor crews abandon their tanks? Why did 6 men win the Victoria Cross using it? What happens when you give desperate infantry a tool that works? The British Army evacuates France and leaves behind almost everything. Anti-tank rifles that can't scratch modern armor, artillery stuck on beaches, tank destroyers lost in the chaos. The Boys anti-tank rifle, standard issue since 1937, fires a .55 caliber round that bounces off anything heavier than a light tank. German panzers roll across Europe with armor plating the Boys can't touch. Infantry needs something better, something portable, something lethal. The department that produces unconventional weapons for special operations. Blacker brings a concept from 1937, the arbalest, a spigot mortar that regular forces rejected. With war underway, desperation opens doors. The arbalest becomes the Blacker Bombard, adopted in 1941 for home guard and airfield defense, 29mm tube, spigot system. The bomb sits on a rod that projects upward. Simple, crude, effective at short range. Would prove ineffective as an anti-tank weapon under any conceivable conditions, dead on arrival. Blacker moves to other projects. The weapon sits dormant. German scientist Egon Neumann discovers that lining the recess with metal enhances damage even more. By the 1930s, Swiss engineer Henry Mohaupt creates shaped charge ammunition, a recessed metal cone in an explosive warhead. On impact, detonation turns the cone into a high-velocity jet of molten metal and gas, cuts through armor like a blowtorch through butter. Range doesn't matter. Velocity doesn't matter. The physics work at any speed or distance. In February 1942, the Ministry of Supply compares Blacker's personal design for a shoulder bombard with Jeffress's amended prototype. Blacker's version fires a 3-inch bomb. Jeffress uses 3.5 inches. Decision: scale Blacker's design up to use Jeffress's larger bomb. Jeffress wants the spigot to retract inside the weapon body with an open front end. February 1942, 5 prototypes built. 4 Type A, 1 Type B. Firing trials run. Modifications follow. Add a trough at the front from Blacker's loading tray concept. Make the shoulder piece part of the cocking mechanism. The designs merge. Further modifications in May. Final approval. The weapon becomes Projector Infantry Anti-Tank Mark I. PIAT. Blacker Bombard production ceases. July 1942. Testing confirms the design works. Imperial Chemical Industries gets the contract. Production plant at Billingham. First production weapons leave the plant, November 1942. First 1,000 PIATs delivered. The weapon exists. Now troops need to learn it. Shoulder pad that doubles as a cocking lever. Loading requires standing up and compressing a spring with 90 kilograms of draw weight. Both feet on shoulder pad. Pull the launcher up with both hands. Full body strength. The spring cocks. Lock it. Place bomb in trough. Tail tube slides over the spigot. Firing pin strikes the propellant cartridge in the bomb tail. Propellant ignites. Gas expands between bomb and spigot. Bomb launches forward. Effective direct fire range, 115 yards against armor. Maximum indirect fire range, 350 yards against buildings. The shaped charge can penetrate over 100 millimeters of armor. Any tank in the German arsenal at close range. Recoil from propellant blows the spigot rod backward. Compresses the spring again. Automatic recocking in theory. In practice, it doesn't always work. Operator must hold trigger down long enough. Any slippage and the spring fails to recock. Then you're standing up in the open under fire trying to manually compress 90 kilograms again. Unlike the American bazooka or German Panzerschreck, it can fire from enclosed spaces. No smoke signature revealing position. Simple construction keeps costs low. Disadvantages: heavy, brutal recoil, difficult to cock, accuracy problems, unreliable fuses on early bombs. Also, this script is researched and factual, using sources from the Tank Encyclopedia article on PIAT published July 16, 2025. Drawing from primary Ministry of Supply documents and wartime testing reports from the Small Arms School at Bisley and the Imperial War Museum's collection, which holds physical PIAT examples and technical manuals from 1943. Now back to the information. PIATs enter service with British and Commonwealth units, first combat use, Canadian troops during the Allied invasion of Sicily, Operation Husky, July 10, 1943, 1st Canadian Infantry Division lands, Red Patch Division, part of Lieutenant General Oliver Leese's 30th Corps in the British 8th Army. The PIAT's debut is disastrous. Bomb fuses malfunction if the round strikes a target from any angle other than perfectly square. Soldiers lose confidence immediately. Stories spread through the ranks. The weapon doesn't work. Command scrambles to fix the problem. Engineers redesign the fusing mechanism, restore faith before Normandy. But even with fixes, the bombs remain volatile. Premature detonations happen often enough that live firing exercises get banned after the war ends. Canadians use PIATs and captured teller mines to blow holes through adjoining walls. Move building to building without exposing themselves to machine gun fire in the streets. The PIAT becomes a multi-role weapon: anti-tank, anti-bunker, wall breacher. 3 rolls from 1 spring-loaded tube. Faulty fuses mean only 75% of fired bombs detonate on target. This is documented. This is real. The PIAT is effective when it works, but requires operators to compensate for its flaws with courage and proximity. Some soldiers operate it alone when necessary. Each platoon gets 1 weapon, 1 chance to stop armor. Panzer Grenadiers, tanks, self-propelled guns. The airborne forces drop into a meat grinder. Only a small force briefly holds one end of the Arnhem Road Bridge before being overrun September 21st. The rest of the division becomes trapped in a small pocket west of the bridge at Oosterbeek. Evacuation on September 25th. 1st Air Landing Brigade, born January 2nd, 1909 on the Isle of Man. Joins the Honorable Artillery Company in 1928. Emergency commission into the Army in 1940. Transfers to South Staffordshires in 1942. Sees combat in Sicily, 1943. September 19th. South Staffords try to reach the bridge. German tanks block the advance at the Municipal Museum on Utrechtseweg. The attack fails. Kane, highest-ranking officer not killed or wounded, organizes a chaotic retreat. Falls back to Oosterbeek. His company defends the east side of the British sector at the Oude Kerk on Benedendorpseweg. PIATs are their only anti-tank weapons. No artillery can cross the flooded river. Mortars fire at point-blank range. The Germans bring armor. Tank immobilized. 75mm howitzer brought up. Tank destroyed completely. Only then does Kane get his wounds dressed. German infantry launch major assault down Ploegzeweg. Self-propelled gun support, trying to cut British off from the river, seal the fate of 1st Airborne. Kane grabs a PIAT, starts engaging the armor. Artillery officer spots for him from a house. Kane, in a slit trench, fires around 50 PIAT bombs in indirect fire over the house roof, dropping them on advancing tanks. Tank fire hits the house, kills the spotter. Chimney drops almost on top of Kane. Another Stug comes down the road. Kane crawls to the corner of his trench, fires from 30 yards, probably hits the tracks. Tank fires back, misses. Huge cloud of smoke and dust. Kane fires second bomb as soon as he can see again. Tank fires second time. In his own words later, shouting like a hooligan, screams for someone to get on the PIAT because another tank is coming, dragged to aid station. Eyesight returns within 30 minutes, returns to the front line immediately. By this point, his eardrums are burst, multiple wounds, partially deaf. Covered in brick dust and cordite burns, he refuses medical evacuation, refuses rest. Enemy makes concentrated attack on Kane's position. Self-propelled guns, flamethrowers, infantry. Last PIAT is out of action. Kane, armed only with a 2-inch mortar, uses it in high-angle fire trying to drop bombs on enemy armor. His daring leadership of the few men still under command completely demoralizes the Germans. Engagement lasts over 3 hours. Enemy withdraws in disorder. Throughout the Battle of Arnhem, Kane's conduct inspires everyone. Stories of his valor constantly exchanged among troops. War Office announces Victoria Cross for Captain Temporary Major Robert Henry Kane. Citation describes his coolness and courage under incessant fire as unsurpassable. December 6, 1944. Investiture at Buckingham Palace. 59 decorations awarded to men who escaped Arnhem. Kane is the only survivor to receive the Victoria Cross. Only Manxman ever awarded the medal. 2nd Battalion South Staffordshire becomes the only British battalion to receive 2 Victoria Crosses in one engagement during the Second World War. The other goes posthumously to Lance Sergeant John Baskyfield of the anti-tank platoon. Memorial scholarship at King William's College. Staffordshire Regimental Museum holds his Victoria Cross, the Denison smock he wore at Arnhem, and his maroon beret. His daughter Frances Catherine Kane later marries British television journalist Jeremy Clarkson. According to Clarkson, she doesn't know about her father's Victoria Cross until after he dies. He never mentioned it. October 21st, 1944, Italy, River Savio in the north, Private Ernest Alvia Smith, the Seaforth Highlanders of Canada, born May 3rd, 1914 in New Westminster, British Columbia, joins Canadian Army, March 5th, 1940, age 25, Depression-era kid who struggled to find work, foul-mouthed, hard-drinking, insubordinate, promoted to corporal 9 times, demoted back to private 9 times, by his own admission. But he loves a fight, and there's plenty of fighting in Europe. Soft vertical banks make bridging impossible. No tanks or anti-tank guns can cross the raging stream. Seaforth Highlanders lead the attack. 2 companies cross at night, Smith's position near the road. Under heavy fire from approaching tanks, Smith shows initiative and inspiring leadership. Leads his PIAT group of 2 men across open field to a position from which the PIAT can best be employed. 1 man stays on the weapon. Smith crosses the road with Private Tennant to get another PIAT. Almost immediately, a Panther comes down the road, machine gun blazing. MG-34 opens up. German infantry on the tank throw grenades. Tennant wounded. Shrapnel in shoulder and arm, described as thick as thieves. The Panther now within 10 meters of Smith's position. 10 German infantrymen riding on the back dismount, rush Smith. Smith doesn't waver. Thompson submachine gun, opens fire, kills 4 enemy soldiers, forces the rest back, takes out the second Panther and an array of other German vehicles. By the end of the engagement, 1 Panther and both self-propelled guns destroyed. Smith credited with holding the bridgehead in absence of heavy support, nominated for the Commonwealth's highest military honor. Smith placed in a Rome jail cell the night before the ceremony to keep him out of trouble. He's the only private in the Canadian Armed Forces to be awarded the Victoria Cross in the Second World War. Last living Canadian recipient when he dies, August 3rd, 2005, age 91. Funeral procession through Vancouver. Body lies in state in the House of Commons. Thousands pay respects. Ashes scattered into the Strait of Georgia. The PIAT proves its worth across multiple theaters. Normandy, June 6, 1944, D-Day. Analysis by British staff officers finds 7% of all German tanks destroyed by British forces knocked out by PIATs. 7%. Compare that to 6% by rockets fired from aircraft. Infantry with spring-loaded tubes are more effective than typhoons firing rockets from the sky. Let that sink in. Canadian Army Survey in 1944 to 1945. 161 Army officers recently returned from combat. Rate effectiveness of 31 different infantry weapons. PIAT ranked the most outstandingly effective weapon, followed by the Bren gun. The Crude spring gun beats everything else for getting the job done. Uses a PIAT in an attack against a German field gun. 6 Victoria Crosses awarded for PIAT actions. Hollis on D-Day, Kane at Arnhem, Smith at the Savio River, 3 more across other actions. The weapon demands courage because effective range is so close, 100 yards maximum against armor. Most operators prefer 50 yards or less. You're within grenade range, within rifle range. You can see facial expressions. The PIAT requires soldiers to face death at conversational distance. Insurgents use PIATs against German armor in city streets. Israeli Haganah acquires PIATs, uses them during 1948 Arab-Israeli War. The weapon spreads because it works. British and Commonwealth troops deploy PIATs. Australian Army briefly uses them alongside 2 .36-inch bazookas, quickly replaced by 3.5-inch M20 super bazookas. PIATs remain in service until early 1950s. Final retirement, 1951. Production ceases 1950. Between August 1942 and 1950, 115,000 PIATs built. But here's the thing about the PIAT that propaganda never mentioned. It was hell to use. 32 pounds of awkward steel tube, no convenient carrying handles. Monopod digs into your shoulder if you try to carry it on your back. Usually requires 2 soldiers. 1 carries the weapon, 1 carries ammunition, 3-pound bombs in 3-round cases. Each case weighs 10 pounds. Carry 5 cases and you're hauling 50 pounds of ammunition, plus your rifle, webbing, rations, water. Infantry loads exceed 80 pounds. Now add the PIAT. Different story when you're under fire in a ditch with a tank 200 yards away closing fast. If the recoil fails to automatically recock because you didn't hold the trigger long enough or because the mechanism jammed, you do it all over again. Standing up. Exposed. While machine guns sweep the area and tank rounds explode around you. Some soldiers master cocking it while prone. Possible. Difficult. Requires technique. Most can't do it under stress. The trigger requires 2 fingers to pull. Slight delay between trigger pull and firing. An experienced operator might release pressure too early. Spring reload fails. Mechanism jammed. Now you're cocking manually under fire. Trials show 60% hit rate at 100 yards with a skilled operator. Combat conditions are worse. Stress, fatigue, enemy fire. Targets moving. Hitting a tank at 100 yards is possible but far from certain. Most operators close to 50 yards or less. Some fire at 30 yards, 20 yards, 10 yards in Smith's case. Get close enough that missing is nearly impossible. Early fuses detonate prematurely if the bomb doesn't strike square. Sicily teaches this lesson the hard way. Fixes improve reliability, but problems persist throughout the war. 75% detonation rate in trials. 25% dud rate. You fire at a tank. Bomb hits. Nothing. Tank keeps coming. Fire again. Hope this one works. Premature detonations happen. Kane experiences it at Arnhem. Bomb explodes in front of his face. Temporarily blinds him. Others aren't so lucky. Premature detonation can kill the operator. Live firing exercise is banned after the war because the bomb is too dangerous. Panzerschreck is similar. Both create smoke and flame that scream, "Here I am." PIAT is silent by comparison. Propellant detonates inside the bomb after it leaves the launcher. No signature. Fire from a basement window. Tank crew has no idea where the shot came from. Fire again before they spot you. PIAT uses mechanical firing pin. Works wet or dry. Mud doesn't stop it. Snow doesn't stop it. Simple mechanical systems are reliable even when everything else fails. Also producing other munitions. Compare that to more sophisticated weapons requiring precision parts and skilled labor. Over 600 approved bunker types, each with specific purpose: steel and concrete, reinforced thick walls, embrasures for guns, machine gun nests, artillery casemates, toberxtenda, resistance nests. Extensive program of beach obstacles. 5 million mines laid by summer 1944. Gun crews spend months pre-sighting anticipated landing areas. Rehearse pouring fire onto designated killing zones. Concrete casemates for heavy artillery, 88mm guns, PAK 43 guns, 105mm howitzers, 155mm guns, Type 677 casemates, Type H667 bunkers. Walls 3 meters thick in places, designed to withstand naval bombardment and airstrikes. The PIAT bomb can penetrate 75mm of armor plate. Building walls are different, but the physics work, especially at embrasures and doors, weak points, or fire at the ventilation system. Blast creates overpressure inside, suffocates the defenders. The bunkers that Hitler bragged about become death traps when infantry get close with PIATs. The weapon proves itself in the role nobody planned for it, not just anti-tank, anti-fortification. British troops used PIATs to crack open strongpoints that were supposed to be invulnerable. 7% of German tanks destroyed by British forces in Normandy knocked out by PIATs. But the weapon destroys more than tanks: bunkers, pillboxes, machine gun nests, buildings, fortified positions. How many of those fell to PIATs? Records don't track it separately, but combat reports mention it constantly. PIAT teams assigned to reduce strongpoints, clear bunkers, breach defenses. The weapon becomes essential for urban combat and close terrain. Not elegant, not sophisticated, but it works. Popular culture focuses on bazookas and Panzerschrecks, sleek rocket launchers, visually impressive. PIATs look clumsy, ungainly. No dramatic backblast for cameras, no rocket trail, just a spring-loaded tube and a man standing too close to death. Countless unnamed soldiers who used PIATs to knock out bunkers and tanks and survive another day. Victoria Crosses tell part of the story. The rest sits in unit war diaries and after-action reports. Statistics buried in archives. When spigot strikes the cartridge, propellant ignites, launches the bomb. Maximum velocity approximately 450 feet per second. Not fast by ballistic standards, but sufficient. The shaped charge does the work. Jet of molten copper penetrates armor regardless of velocity. Physics of the Monroe effect: 3 pounds of high explosive shaped correctly defeats 3 meters of hardened steel armor. Practice bomb: same size and weight as live round, no warhead. Live propellant cartridge can be fired once, not reusable. Illumination rounds for signaling, smoke rounds for screening, but combat use focused on the high explosive anti-tank round. That's what killed tanks and cracked bunkers. Cocking compresses the spring. Trigger releases it. Spring launches spigot forward with enough force to ignite the propellant. Recoil from propellant detonation drives spigot backward. Compresses spring again. Automatic recocking, in theory. Practice shows it works maybe 70% of the time. Other 30% requires manual recocking. Standing up under fire, pulling 90 kilograms of spring tension with your entire body. Training emphasizes keeping the weapon cocked when expecting contact. Carry it loaded and cocked. Don't wait until you see a tank. By then, it's too late. Training manual states in action: the projector will always be carried cocked, but unloaded. Bomb loaded only when engagement is imminent. This reduces the need to manually cock under fire. But it also means carrying a weapon with a compressed spring and a hair trigger for hours or days. Accidents happen, negligent discharges, injuries from accidental releases. Weapons that break in the field and can't be fixed become dead weight. PIAT's mechanical simplicity means it keeps working even when other weapons fail. Bombs stored separately, fuses removed. This prevents accidents and maintains weapon readiness. 3-round ammunition cases keep bombs protected during transport. Waterproof, shock resistant. Each case marked with lot numbers for tracking. Nothing that changes the fundamental design. 115,000 PIATs produced means manufacturing at multiple sites with slight variations. Imperial Chemical Industries leads production, but subcontractors make components. Quality control varies. Some PIATs are better made than others. Soldiers notice. Troops prefer certain weapons known to be reliable. Pass them down when transferring. Reputation matters in combat. A PIAT that always recocks properly is worth gold. One that jams regularly gets tossed aside first chance. Uses them against Arab armor and fortifications. Warsaw Uprising 1944. Polish insurgents fight Wehrmacht with whatever weapons they can get. PIATs dropped by air or captured from Germans. Used in desperate urban fighting. The weapon appears wherever British supplies reach. Resistance movements, Allied forces, post-war conflicts. Simple, effective weapons don't become obsolete overnight. Korean War marks the PIAT's final significant combat deployment. British and Commonwealth forces deploy to Korea in 1950. Bring PIATs with them. North Korean T-34 tanks appear. PIATs can penetrate early T-34 armor at close range, but the weapon is outdated by this point. American M20 Super Bazooka offers better range and penetration, 3.5-inch rocket, higher velocity, more reliable fusing. By 1951, Commonwealth forces complete transition to Super Bazooka. PIATs retired, production ceased. The spring gun had a 10-year combat lifespan, 1943 to 1953. Brief by military standards, but intense. 3 major wars, countless smaller actions, 115,000 weapons deployed, 6 Victoria Crosses, thousands of tank kills, countless bunkers destroyed, fortifications breached. Lives saved. This realization changes defensive thinking. Walls alone don't provide security. Active defense required. Early warning, depth, maneuver. Fixed fortifications become targets instead of solutions. They remain. Decades pass, tourism develops, D-Day sites become historical attractions, bunkers preserved, museums opened, the fortifications meant to keep Allies out become monuments to their defeat. Tours walk through casemates, guides explain the fighting, PIATs mentioned in context of bunker assaults. Physical evidence remains, blast damage at embrasures, blown doors, interior fire damage, mute testimony to close quarters combat. Modern analysis confirms historical assessments. PIAT was effective within its limitations. Close range requirement made it dangerous to use. Reliability issues plagued it throughout service, but when it worked, it killed tanks and destroyed fortifications. Numbers support this. 7% of tank kills in Normandy. Top-rated weapon in Canadian survey. 6 Victoria Crosses. Commonwealth forces valued it despite its flaws. The question is why? Why did this crude, spring-loaded tube succeed where more sophisticated weapons existed? More complex, more expensive, more likely to malfunction in adverse conditions? German Panzerschreck copied the bazooka, larger warhead, greater penetration. Massive backblast. Cannot fire from enclosed positions. Reveals position instantly. Requires clear area behind weapon. Mechanical reliability in mud, rain, snow. These advantages matter in combat. Close quarters urban fighting, bunker assaults, ambushes, defensive positions in buildings. All scenarios where PIAT excels. Not every engagement happens at long range. Sometimes the enemy is 50 yards away and you need to kill him before he kills you. PIAT does that job. British and Commonwealth infantry tactics emphasize close-range aggressive action, fire and movement, assault at speed, get inside enemy decision cycles. PIATs fit this doctrine. American tactics emphasize firepower and standoff, call in artillery, air support, suppress with machine guns, then advance. Bazookas fit American doctrine. German tactics vary by period and unit. Late war Panzerfaust is disposable one-shot weapon, simple, effective, deadly at close range, different solution to the same problem. Every military finds weapons that match their tactical culture. Emphasize courage required to engage at close range. This training shows in combat. Soldiers know how to use the weapon. More importantly, they know when to use it. Ambush tactics. Let the tank pass. Fire at rear armor. Thinner protection. Higher kill probability. Or target tracks. Mobility kill is enough. Disabled tank becomes target for artillery or other weapons. Can't see threats in close terrain. Hedgerows, buildings, woods. Every shadow might hide a PIAT team. Psychological pressure affects decision-making. Tank commanders become cautious, hesitate, withdraw. Sometimes the threat of a PIAT is as effective as actual PIAT fire. Kane at Arnhem. He fires at tanks, hits some, misses others, but all of them withdraw or change course. Tank commanders don't know if the next PIAT bomb will kill them. Fear is a weapon too. Citation describes leading PIAT group across open field under heavy fire. Engages Panther at 30 feet, kills evacuating crew with Tommy gun, protects wounded comrade, holds position until enemy withdraws. Stanley Hollis on D-Day. Multiple actions. PIAT used against field gun position, bunkers, pillboxes. Saves lives of his men. These aren't statistics. These are men who faced death at conversational distance with a crude, spring-loaded tube and won. All 5 Arnhem Victoria Crosses involve actions against armor and fortifications. PIATs feature in most. The weapon doesn't make heroes, but heroes use the weapon to accomplish impossible missions. Shaped charge patterns, hit from close range. Evidence matches war diary entries from 2nd South Staffordshire Regiment. Date matches Kane's actions, September 21st, 1944. The crude spring gun made bunkers useless and tanks into burning coffins. Not because it was sophisticated, because it worked, because men used it when death was 3 meters away. The receipts are in the ground.